All right, hey, let's get started. We're going to go ahead and record this for all our million friends that are out today because we don't want to write your book for you. Sorry.
We're disappointed in you.
We are so disappointed.
Only 4 people, so
Oh.
Why y'all play what you done?
Well, that's Abdeli's talking. Okay. All right. So we're picking up with lesson 20. Not last week because of map testing, but the week before we finished out with King Saul. And what was kind of like our takeaway from Saul? Like, what do we remember? Feel free to flip back if you need to.
Okay, Miss Span, I don't want to disappoint you, but I realized I'm in the wrong. Oh, I'm in 28. I'm in 23.
Oh, you did like the wrong page? Well, I forgive you. All right, but what about Saul? So he's the first king of Israel. He starts out doing a pretty good or pretty bad job?
Good. Oh, good.
He starts out well, and then he slowly goes into the toilet. Yeah, he definitely, he stops paying attention to what God wants. He completely disobeys God on several occasions. And so God doesn't really like to put up with that kind of stuff, after he gives you an opportunity and then he kind of takes the opportunity away. So now we're picking up in 1 Samuel chapter 16, and God comes to Samuel and tells him, hey, it's time to stop crying about Saul, like we need to replace him. So he tells him to go to the family of Jesse, and he said, I'm going to pick my next king from his sons. And so Samuel shows up and asks, he said, I need to meet with all of you. I'm here because the Lord called me to come choose one of you and anoint you as king. So Jesse gets all his kiddos and he lines them up. And the first thing that we see when Samuel is checking these kids out is he lays his eyes on Eliab. I think I'm saying that correctly. So as Jesse's oldest son, what is it that Samuel thinks when he first sees Eliab? This is the first question, so hopefully somebody has it, right?
I would have had it.
I know you would have. Kat, you got anything for me? Oh, wow. Faith, you got nothing for me? I hope your parents are listening to this. Well, we've been sitting here for at least 30 minutes.
I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find it. Hang on. Jax, what you got?
We are disappointed.
They thought, they said, the Lord,
Okay, yeah, it sounds like you're there. I just want to point out real quick, I'm going to call bull honky on you guys because now right here it tells us where we are and what verses, right? Chapter 16, verses 6 through 13. But right here, here's my question, and what does it tell you right here? Verse 6. All you have to do is check verse 6, and you will find your answer there. It's not a big mystery. So I'm going to call y'all out on your bull honky right now.
Okay.
You know you were talking too much, and I love you. Now, what Jax was trying to say is that, I don't know, do you want me to give you a grade for the work you've accomplished so far? All right. So what 1 Samuel 16 tells us is that when Samuel sees Eliab, the oldest son, he was like, surely that is God's anointed, right? He immediately sees him and says, that's got to be it. That's our new king. What does he know about this guy? Nothing. Except that he's the oldest, right? What are some things that we have learned about being the oldest son during this time with the Hebrews and Israelites? Jax?
you get, right, you have like the right thing, the right.
More rights? Yeah. Absolutely. And like, what about inheritance wise?
You get all the stuff they leave behind.
Right, and you're like the leader of the family, right? All right. So we said that as the first son, then he would have inherited pretty much everything, right? He would have been the head of the family, would have received the blessing from his father. And so it doesn't really surprise us then if Samuel sees this guy and kind of assumes, hey, this must be who God's going to pick, right? He must be the one. But again, he knows nothing about him except from what he sees. So when we continue on into verse 7, the Bible says something really important. And this, 1 Samuel 16:7 is one of those verses that is worth memorizing. Like, I wish it was our memory verse. If I had really looked at this, I probably would have changed our memory verse that they gave you. But it's really one of those verses that you really need to, like, have in your head, in your heart. In your own words, what does it say about how God sees people versus how we see them? Jax?
Wait, I was gonna say like something else.
Okay.
You know, like the coat of many colors. Like, he was the youngest, and he like became like second, like era.
No, for sure. And so the Bible is full of stories like that where we see. I love. So he was just bringing up, if you couldn't hear him, that Joseph was like the youngest son. And he ended up being like second in all of Egypt, which is true. Over and over in the Bible, the stories are going to show you that God does not use the people that we would pick. Kind of like Samuel. He looks at Eliab. He said, that's got to be him. He looks the part, right? He's the oldest. And so, like, from society's point of view, maybe Eliab makes sense. However, that's not how God chooses and sees his people. So when you look at verse 7, does anybody have that kind of in their own words? The Bible tells us the difference between how God sees people and how we look at people. Anybody? Jack?
We look at people and we can pick who is like the best, or like or like who's like the strongest, and, smartest.
Yep.
And God, he like looks at people and their personality and everything.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Like we basically just kind of like pick people based on shallow things, right? That aren't really deep. But in verse 7, the Bible tells us, that God sees our hearts. God sees who we are on the inside. But as people, we look at the outward appearance. What we see is what we get. And that's really what we're interested in. The truth is that a person can be completely beautiful on the outside and be completely evil and dark on the inside. I mean, I could throw out so many statistics at you of people who have done horrible things. What time has shown us, like people who make horrible choices, who hurt people. A lot of times when you meet their neighbors, like they're on the news and they're interviewing the neighbors, and the neighbor's like, he was the nicest guy I ever met. He had everybody over for barbecue in his backyard constantly. You know what I mean? Like, nice, friendly, good-looking guy. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are on the outside. It matters how beautiful you are on the inside, okay? And God is able to see that, whereas we just really get stuck in what we see, what our first impressions are. We write off a lot of people when we do that. Kat?
I forgot.
Do you guys remember the picture of Mother Teresa?
Who's Mother Teresa?
Did we not get to this? Maybe we didn't get to this. I thought we did. Hang on one second. So, Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it cut off itself, but I'm not sure where I was before. But you know what? Hit pause if you don't have all of this, and then we will consider you all caught up. All right. So God picks David, the youngest son of Jesse, and Samuel anoints him. Now the next question asks, besides the anointing, how does God show his approval for David? And when we continue to read, the Bible tells us that the Spirit of the Lord is on him. After this time, when we close out chapter 16 of 1 Samuel, the Bible tells us that Saul starts, it almost reads like he is, what's the word? Like he's possessed with an evil spirit, okay? And he starts getting a little crazy, a little paranoid. And so what his advisors do is they say, hey, well, what about some like calming music? You know, maybe we can bring someone in. And they know a boy who plays the lyre. And guess who it is?
David.
It's David. So I wanted to, let me bring this up real quick. Now, I haven't actually listened to this, but this guy, they're playing and it's supposed to help you understand what it would have sounded like. And this is a pretty good likeness for what it might have looked like. Yeah.
You get out of the camera and stuff.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So let me go ahead and see if I can get it to play. Why don't I have any sound? There we go. Now keep in mind that this would have been something that would be handmade. So that gives you like a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. Oh, it's still recording. Okay. I don't know if you guys could hear that or not, but we played a little YouTube video. And so at that point, David goes and he is working and helping Saul. He plays music for him and he starts to work in the palace, things like that. Really, it's a good opportunity for him to kind of see what goes on, what the king does, kind of like a little bit of internship. And so the important thing that we know about David that you guys are going to pick up from this whole week is that David, despite the fact that he is supposed to be the king, right? He waits and waits, and he is patient and loyal to the king, to King Saul. Okay. Eventually it gets kind of hairy, and he's going to start getting a little upset. But we'll see. We'll see that he's going to kind of show who he is. Now, before we get into this next piece of the story, I want to remind you that when we're studying the Bible, when we look at the people in the Bible, we don't always know a lot about the people. I mean, they may be mentioned like once in the whole Bible. But most of the time, what we know about these biblical characters, about these people who lived thousands of years ago, is really what we read in their actions, how they respond to things, and then any kind of commentary that kind of they put in about how God feels about the person, etc. And so for David is famous because of one story that's told about him in the Bible, and that's the story of David and Goliath. Okay, If you don't know the story, don't worry about it. We're going to walk through it. But this is probably like one of the number one like children's Bible stories because it's cool. And also we see that who David is, like when you're thinking through, you all right? No comment. She fell into the cabinet. I got nothing. Okay. So anyway, so as you're listening to this story, like just kind of think to yourself what this says about David as a person. Okay. All right. So the Philistines are at war with the Israelites again, and when they come down, one of them is this huge guy named Goliath. Okay? And the Bible tells us that he's so many cubits. It's like 3 cubits in a span. It's something like that. Like, let me see. Does it say... I don't even remember how tall it says he is. But... you know, they kind of talk about like how tall he is, how much taller he is than other people. And when you look at those, what's this drama?
He's not thinking No, I'm not. I think she's getting the virus I have.
He's over 9 foot, okay, when you look at the biblical measurements of it. So anyway, Goliath is this gigantic guy, and he, for over and over and over, for days and days and days, comes out and he just runs his mouth. And he is mocking God's army. He's mocking the Israelites' God. He says, who's going to come out and face me? What are you guys afraid of? And he basically says, you know what? Forget this whole battle between our armies. You send one person out to fight me, and if you beat me, we'll all surrender to you. And it goes on and on and on, and yet no one wants to step up to him. So 3 of David's brothers are there with King Saul in the army, and Jesse asked David to take them some food and just check in on them and make sure that they're okay. So David goes, and when he shows up, he sees his brothers. They're not real nice to him. I think they're kind of jealous because they know he's going to be king. Anyway, and he hears Goliath mocking God, mocking the army, and he goes up to Saul and says, hey, I will fight him. And Saul says, yeah, no, you don't have the experience. You're too young. He's too, you won't win, that kind of thing. And David does a really amazing job of explaining to Saul that, really what he tells him is, like, I've faced down wild bears and wolves and lions, and God has always protected me. And right now, if I go forward and I am defending the name of our God and our army, God will take care of me. He will protect me. Now, as a shepherd, David's job is to stay with the sheep, and it's actually a really dangerous job. And he's a young guy. He's not, he's not a big, strong guy. When he's younger and he's doing all of this. So it's not like he was taking on all of these animals like with big weapons. What he had was a slingshot. He would use a slingshot and some stones. So I'm going to flip over here. I don't know if it probably won't show up, but this gives you an idea of a slingshot. We think of a slingshot as kind of like a wishbone, right, with a handle, and we can just pull it back and let it go. But that's not what it would have looked like in David's time. Now, what you see here, there's a little knot at the end of this side of the leather. And then there's like a little pouch. It could have been, it was probably mostly like a piece of animal skin, things like that. It would make a little small pouch there, and you would put the stone in it, and you would swing it. And at one point, you would finally let go of it. Now, this little knot would be tied around one of your fingers, so you would let it go, and the stone would fly. Okay? And he would have used this to try to scare off any kind of predators that were attacking him or the sheep. His goal was not to kill them, but to just make them go bye-bye. Yeah, Kat.
Why does it look like there's a marshmallow in there?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I don't know. That is kind of a funny looking stone for sure.
Is there a marshmallow?
It's definitely a marshmallow.
That's a marshmallow.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't want to eat, but he'd be hurt. I don't know. It does look like a marshmallow, though. You're right. It looks completely weird. Jax?
No wonder why it broke his skull. It broke his skull.
It sinks into his skull. It sure does. Yeah.
No wonder why. It was going rapid speed.
So, but David would have been a really good shot with this. Again, he probably practiced with it. It was something he probably did even as a kid. You see in movies, or if you are gun friendly at your house, you always see people practicing like shooting cans, things and stuff like that, target practice. But it would definitely be something a skill that he would want to really be a master of, because it could mean life or death for him. So go ahead and you can start writing these numbers down, okay? This tells you the order of the story. So David volunteers to fight Goliath. And Saul even says, you know what, cool, I'll even outfit you in my armor. Well, it was too big and too heavy. So David said, you know what, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go do me. I'm going to go handle my business. And of course, when Goliath sees David, what do you think his response is?
He thinks this is a joke.
Oh, absolutely he does. Yeah, he takes it as a joke. He's running his mouth. And at that point, David starts that slingshot up, and it takes one stone. He goes out there with his slingshot and 5 stones. And the very first one, the Bible tells us, hits Goliath square in the forehead and knocks him out. David then takes a sword and cuts the head off of Goliath. Now, that's not in your book here. But he ends up taking it, like, to the capital city. It's a big deal. And he wins. Now, I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, I always think in that moment when, it had to be so noisy, people screaming and yelling, everybody's emotional, and then David lets that slingshot go, and Goliath just folds like a cheap suit. You know what I mean? He's just, boom. Like, to me, I just imagine this moment of silence. Like, this moment where everybody just goes, you know what I mean? Like, jaws drop. And because I don't think they were expecting a whole lot out of him. I really don't. But David, when he goes out, tells Goliath, you shouldn't have down-talked my God. Like, he's going to take care of me, and I'm going to take care of you. He kind of gets into some details about birds eating him and things like that. Fun talk. Lots of trash talk. But I always think of it kind of like one of those like sports moments, and I'm not a sports person, but like when something unexpected happens, like one of those Hail Mary passes, and you hear the announcer and they're like, oh yeah, wait, what's happening? He's running, and touchdown! You know what I mean? Like, and then the crowd goes wild, and that's kind of how I picture this moment for David, like just everybody kind of freezing and then saying, oh my goodness, what just happened? And so it's a big moment for him, definitely. And but he wins, and he is able to, kind of say, hey, this is who I am, this is who our God is. Now, again, we see that not only, number one, David, who is younger than everybody there, I'm sure, who has no military experience, who has no armor, no weapon, no military training, and he is the only one there, including the king himself, who's offended enough by Goliath's trash talk about God that he steps up and says, I will fight him. That's a big deal. So, again, it's one of those things where we're like, okay, who was David? Kat, you're not reading, are you? Oh, okay. That's rude. Put it up. He is the only one in that whole place that was willing to stand up and do what was right. And then God used that for his glory. And then we see in the next verses that David gives praise to God for the victory. He was like, God protected me. God made this happen. Now, the next question they ask you is, who showed more trust in God, David or Saul? I think that's kind of a duh. But, you know, some of the things that we just kind of marked down, and you guys might have something different. Just like when we look at David and what he did in this situation, we see him, number one, step up to fight. Everybody else is just shaking in their boots, and he says, I'll do it. And he even argues with the king. The king gives him an out. Saul says, no, you're too young. He has an out. Oh, okay, king. Okay, your majesty, you know, I'll respect that. And he doesn't. He still argues that he can do it. He's younger and smaller than everybody else. He's very clear there in number 3 that he is trusting God to protect him. He has no idea. He has no delusions about the fact, like, he's like, man, you have never seen me with this slingshot. I will take that sucker out right now. Like, it's not like he thinks he has all of these skills to take Goliath down by himself. The entire time he says, God will protect me. He has protected me from these animals. He has protected me from the predators. He has protected me, and he will continue to protect me. And then at the end, of course, he praises God when he wins, instead of saying, yeah, I'm the man. I'm the man. He doesn't take any of that praise. He gives all of it directly to God. I always love it because, like, if you watch any of the awards, like Golden Globe, I don't know, what are the other ones? You know, where it's like Best Actress, blah, blah, blah. And they're always like, I just want to thank God for this award. Like, do you know? Like, I don't know. Part of me is kind of like, it's not my job to judge, but they say it so easily. So easily. I don't know. It's really easy to say that you know him or to give him that praise, but, you know, to not take any credit at all is pretty important. Are you guys good here? Okay. And I think that is it for this section. Yes. So that takes us to 20B. Hopefully we'll have all of our people back tomorrow, and if not, then we'll make you another video. Okay, bye-bye.